The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
4% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country, think of it, went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected.
All right, I've broken. I don't know why this is so funny to me, but I've broken the seal. I have broken the seal, meaning I finally started a podcast off with Trump. All right. Oh, man. All right, everybody. I'm giving you Trump trigger warning. We are going to talk about Trump a little bit. So for all of you that get triggered, I want you to just take a deep breath because there is a bigger point to this. All right. No, in all seriousness, there is a bigger point to this. And I mean, it's a big problem, actually. So I'm going to use this. It's a perfect example of, honestly, just what a problem the media, and not even just the media, but like podcasters, YouTubers, TikTokers, anyone that has a platform is causing with this. So if you did not hear about what I just played, so Trump was at a rally in Ohio, and that was the beginning portion of what he was talking about, which, by the way, barely got covered. And again, I want to be super clear. This is not pro-Trump, anti-Trump, anything. What I'm doing is, honestly, this goes under the banner of calling a spade and is truly highlighting what I think is such a big problem with the world right now, especially the United States, when it comes to, people and their takes on things. So basically, he's in Ohio, he's given that speech, and he's talking about how China is basically trying to buddy up with Mexico, build a bunch of car factories there, and then through Mexico, import their cars into the United States so they don't have to worry about any type of, tariffs against, I guess, automobiles coming from China or whatever. I don't totally know why they would try to backdoor it like that. I don't know if there's issues with cars coming directly from China, but basically the entire speech of what he was talking about had to do with the auto industry. Okay. That's just a fact. Now, I'm going to play for you the second part, which is the part that got all the news, and, the misconstrued take on this. Now, before I play this, honestly, I am not anti-Trump. I'm definitely not. But I do think he's a knucklehead. I think he is, I don't know, man. He is honestly his own worst enemy. And when I have a conversation with people about Trump, it really falls into one of two categories. One is I can't even have a conversation with people about him because their Trump derangement syndrome is so far off the charts that you can't even have a civil conversation with them. You can't even literally talk rationally, good or bad. It just isn't going to work. And honestly, unfortunately, I think that is a huge chunk of the population. Now, other people who might not like Trump but at least you can have a conversation about his policies or things like that. That ends up being productive. My problem with Trump is he's just a knucklehead. He's a knucklehead. Like, man, can you imagine? Can you imagine if Trump could speak the way Obama speaks? Seriously, think about that president. Someone who, really had a lot of great policies because he did. And again, for those of you shaking your head, you're just wrong. So I'm not even going to argue that. But he just can't communicate in an effective manner for everybody. And I'm not saying Obama can't, although you know what? Man, this is interesting. I will say this. For the people that hate Obama, they hate his policies. This is good. The people that hate Obama hate or hated his policies. You can't hate his personality. The guy's got a good personality, and that's calling a spade, okay? That is like someone who, again, doesn't have a dog in that fight, calling it like I see it, actually. Trump, his policies were good, but his personality wasn't. So people hated his personality, and they could never get past the divisiveness of the way he talked, what he talked about, and really just the personality versus the policies. So they're really like flip-flopped. Now imagine I'm not going to say MAGA because again, that term has taken on a terrible connotation, but putting America first and the interests of America first. Imagine someone with the articulation of Obama doing that. That would be a pretty powerful president. That would be a pretty powerful president. Who was that? I don't know. Maybe, Reagan had some of that. I'd honestly even say maybe Bill Clinton had a little bit of that. Slick Willie did like to get a little freaky in the Oval Office with his cigars, but he was able to galvanize people together. I don't remember being divided during the Clinton years. I really don't. I wasn't into politics the way I am now, but I don't remember the country being divided. Yeah, the country definitely wasn't divided because look at his sex scandal with Monica Lewinsky. Everybody just gave him a pass on it. Even like Republicans gave him a pass. Can you imagine what would have happened in 2016 to 2020 or 2020 to 2024 if Trump or Biden, oh my God, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, if they had a sexual situation like Bill Clinton did with Monica Lewinsky, where they played hide and seek with a cigar. Come on. Oh my God. The internet would literally explode. It would literally explode. So Reagan, Clinton, gosh, I'm sure John F. Kennedy probably came across like that. That was a little before my time, but there's not a lot of presidents that can combine, the policies with the personality. All right, so let's listen to where the wheels came off the bus on this speech.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country.
There it is. That was like 9 seconds where he said, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath. And so that is the clip. Actually, a lot of you right now might not have even known the first part of what I played in terms of this being something that was really taken out of context, and it was part of his speech in regards to the auto industry suffering a bloodbath. Even Elon Musk posted something about that saying, okay, this is ridiculous. He was absolutely talking about the auto industry. So that 9-second clip is what absolutely has garnered, I mean, hundreds of millions of impressions, and impressions that probably might not ever get corrected for people. So there's probably millions of people globally, definitely in the United States, that think he was referring to there being a bloodbath if he doesn't win the election. And that was not what he was referring to. So where I think the irresponsible journalism comes, if somebody made an honest mistake about reporting that, then they should do a correction and say, hey, you know what? I said that Trump said this, but he was referring to the auto industry. Now, he shouldn't have even used that word. I mean, he probably should know better that like they're going to take things in context, or out of context. But the way he strung that along, or the way he strung out that sentence, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath. Again, I mean, the problem is Trump I do know a few people that know him, and they basically say what you see is what you get. So he is straight off the cuff. And so I guess it doesn't surprise me that he would say something like that, because he's not thinking how he should deliver the statement. Whereas, when I listen to Obama speak, I mean, you can tell he is definitely rehearsed what he was going to say, and he delivers it. He does. He just does. Man, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like shaking their heads during this episode, I think. But seriously, take everything I'm saying, rewind a little bit if you have to, rise 30,000 feet in the air, put your feelings towards one or the other guy aside, and just think about it from a common sense standpoint and calling a spade a spade. So like there were guys, like I really like Mehdi Hassan, and there were a lot of guys that I really liked that I thought were very irresponsible for the way they reported on this. So let me read what Mehdi wrote, which again, this is just like an example of the way the journalists reported on it, which I don't think is appropriate. He said, then at a campaign rally in Ohio on Saturday, Trump warned there would be a bloodbath if he's not put back in the White House this November. The Trump campaign and their online outriders, I don't even know what that word is, have since insisted that the former president was referring to a bloodbath in the auto industry if Biden is reelected. Yes, he did mention Chinese car parts, but hold on. He also said that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. So, I mean, that second part, that's going to be the least of it. I mean, I get it, but again, totally out of context. The way it's been portrayed, I mean, across headline after headline after headline is Trump says if he's not reelected, country will be bloodbath. I mean, that's the headline. And again, many of you right now, you might be like, oh shit, that's kind of what I thought he said. But it's not, okay? It just isn't. And so what I don't like about really just the way, and this is kind of case in point for how things are done, because again, they're done on the other side for Biden as well. There's certain things that have come out that I feel like just get misrepresented by, let's say, the Republican side. And again, all this stuff is doing is revving up the base of hate. And we are not allowing the real issues to come to the forefront. All right, so that's the whole Trump bloodbath. All right, get over it. Again, I don't care if you hate him, but hate him for the right reasons, okay? All right, so that's that. Let's move on. We got some good stuff. That Chuck Schumer speech that he gave on the Senate floor, where basically he said to Netanyahu, you need to be done. The other parts of that, which I don't think I talked about in episode 119, but he basically said Hamas needs to go, Netanyahu needs to go, the Palestinian Authority, the PA, that runs the West Bank. Remember, Hamas runs Gaza. The Palestinian Authority runs the West Bank. The guy's name is Mahmoud Abbas. Initially, it seemed like they were trying to set it up to where the Palestinian Authority would take over Gaza as well. And basically, they would be the united, I guess, faction for Palestine. Now, Netanyahu has always never wanted that. He's literally funded Hamas over the years in order to create that division between the PA, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and then Hamas in Gaza. And remember, the two sections are separated. Hamas is, if you're staring at your left hand right now, Gaza and Hamas is your thumb, and then the Palestinian Authority and the West Bank would be like your index finger and your middle finger together. So it's bigger, but there's a lot of land between the two of them. So part of that Schumer speech was, again, remove Hamas, remove Netanyahu, remove the Palestinian Authority, and then remove, I guess, the other right-wing parts of Netanyahu. So really it was 2 and 2. It was like, get rid of Netanyahu, get rid of all his psychotic right-wing, and those guys are psychotic, by the way. It's like this guy, Ben Gvir, and his finance minister, I forget that dude's name, but those dudes are psycho. They are psycho. They say some crazy stuff, man. They say some crazy stuff. Reminds me of that song Lunatic Fringe from that wrestling movie with Matthew. Oh God, I'm blanking. Lunatic Fringe. I know you're out there. I forget the movie though. I'll have to look that up. All right, anyway. All right, psycho right-wing dudes, Netanyahu, get rid of Hamas, get rid of Palestinian Authority. So then the question is, who's left? Who's going to rule these sections? What's the play? Seriously, what's the play? On the Israel side, they're talking about holding elections. In concert last week, the other thing that happened is there's a guy named Benny Gantz. Sounds like a Sopranos character. Benny Gantz, Gantz. But he is kind of Netanyahu's, I don't want to say enemy, but he's on the other side of Netanyahu. And it says Vice President Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, and other lawmakers met last week in Washington with Benny Gantz, a member of Israel's war cabinet and a far more popular rival of Netanyahu, a visit that drew a rebuke from the Israeli prime minister. So they met with Benny Gantz last week before Chuck Schumer took the stage. Okay, coincidence? I think not. And then yesterday...
Tomorrow, am I right to describe it as a secret meeting? We had no idea this was happening, did we?
I think it's being described as a private meeting, but certainly unexpected to see the former US president show up at Downing Street. We're told it's a courtesy call while he's in town for work to do with his foundation and decided to drop in on the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. And I'm told that the two of them have not met before, so this is their first meeting, and it is a private informal chat.
All right, so basically on the heels of what took place last week, Obama is in England, in London, meeting with Rishi Sunak, private meeting, got a lot of coverage on BBC and those places. And so everybody's like, wait a minute, what's he doing? What's the point of this? So here's what I think is the point of it. Honestly, I'm going to connect the dots a little bit. And there's another dot. Actually, there's two more dots that are part of this. So I do think this has to do with Netanyahu and getting rid of him. And, I think the United States and England, which has been a completely unified front when it comes to this situation with Israel in Gaza the entire time. It's been the U.S. and England, and pretty much that's it. Okay? Now, two other countries that normally are part of the fearsome foursome or the Fantastic Four or whatever you want to call it, the Fab Four, would be Canada and France as well. So US, Canada, France, England. Those guys normally do everything together. Well, Canada and France, first of all, they've been voting for the ceasefire. The United States and England have been voting against the ceasefire. Actually, England would abstain, and then the U.S. has voted down the ceasefire every time. France, with Emmanuel Macron, he started out kind of defending Israel on October 7th, but ever since then, he's really said some things that, honestly, I'm very surprised that he said, because I'm not going to say he's pro-Palestinian, but he has not been critical on Netanyahu. Or, I'm sorry, he has been critical on Netanyahu. Same thing with Trudeau. Now, again, they're both duplicitous and they talk out of both sides of their mouth. But the fact that they simply even voted yes for the ceasefire in the various United Nations votes, whereas the United States unequivocally has always voted no for the ceasefire, and then England voted no, and then they abstained. You know, there's a little bit of a rift there. So, like, I feel like there's sides and there's teams, and I think the U.S. and England are one team, and then I think they iced out Canada and France. And so it's got me thinking, are there some natural resources at play here? And the U.S. and England's just like, yeah, screw them. We're not giving them a piece of the pie. So, you know, we've talked about the fact that there is this natural gas that supposedly is discovered. There's oil fields in northern Gaza that supposedly got discovered. You've got this Ben Gurion Canal to compete with the Suez Canal that supposedly is in the mix. So, I don't know. Those things line up a little bit to me. And then here's the other funny part. So in France, okay, I'm going to cover this in another episode because it's so strange and so odd, but it's front page news right now. And that is that Emmanuel Macron is 46 years old. I guess his wife is 70 years old. Brigitte Macron is like 70 years old. And their love story is incredibly odd, but I will tease it with, there is a 3-year journalistic, I guess, heavily credible report where they're saying that Brigitte Macron was a man. That's a man, baby. But yeah, they're saying she's a man, and she's a transgender, transitioned at the age of 30. Again, Emmanuel Macron was supposedly her student, and then they had this unbelievable connection. I don't know, man. It's really weird, but I will tell you, Candace Owens, who many of you might know, she did a really good podcast episode on it. And again, there's receipts. There's receipts on this stuff. I'll put some more of this together in another episode. I don't want to get into it today. But again, my point is, with France and Canada sort of being iced out, now all of a sudden it's all over the news, this sordid love affair for Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, and then his wife. So, like, again, the timing of this stuff is just weird. It's just weird. It lines up to the fact that things are being released on purpose. Oh man, this episode's off the rails a little bit. But I'm telling you, this stuff all makes sense. Seriously, you've got to be open to hearing stuff. We are living in a crazy madcap world right now. We just are. So just be open if this stuff sounds crazy. I mean, do your own research. Seriously, do your own research. Debunk anything I say. But again, I'm not breaking any news. I'm just sharing news that's being broken. It's just not being broken in the mainstream. So, all right. So there's all that coming up on 25 minutes. I was gonna play a couple more things from you, but things are heating up, man. Things are heating up. This Netanyahu situation, it really gained steam over the weekend. You know, what was interesting was that Netanyahu was on like Face the Nation and then a Fox program. And then Nancy Pelosi was on Face the Nation. Nancy Pelosi supported Chuck Schumer. She also like said more bad stuff about Netanyahu. So again, I just find, remember we talked about trends, and there's definitely the trend that they're piling on to Netanyahu and his right-wing guys, like his whole crew. So maybe the liberal left is like, hey, you know what? This is really affecting the potential election this year. And secondly, we don't like these guys anyway. So you know what? We're going to take advantage of this momentum, this negative momentum that they created, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone and get rid of those guys and get rid of Hamas and get rid of the Palestinian Authority. I do not know who they are going to bring in to run things, but anyway, it should get very interesting. Pay attention. Let me know if I missed anything. More to come. Rise 30,000 feet above. Take out your emotions. I know some of you hate Trump. I know some of you hate Obama. Try and separate your feelings from the facts. Try and separate personalities from policies. Call a spade a spade. Have a great day. We'll catch up with you soon.
The ending was terrific.
This episode is being brought to you by the upcoming book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You. That's right, Bro wrote a book, and it's coming soon. Stay tuned.